Hi, everybody. This is day 1091. 1091 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And he didn't just vanish, something happened. A lot of crimes happened. A lot of crimes, including murder, happened. But, um, well, I shouldn't say but, right? Uh, be- however, however, the cover up um, is just as bad, worse, maybe worse than the crime. Um, I don't know, not to me, but that's what um, I've been I've been told. Quoted. The cover up could be worse than the crime. Um, it's I guess it's how you see things. What's your perspective on everything? Let's see. I am going to look at my Facebook and see if everything's going okay. And because we have another witness who, okay, so we have another witness that is part of General Eisenhower's security, the security of Fort Bliss. Um, since we have that witness, um, we have some major witnesses in. Let's see, everything is good. I have to be so careful. Uh, People's lives are being threatened, and there's so many cowards out there. I'm sorry, but I have to say that there's so many cowards out there that swear an oath to defend the Constitution, to defend this country, to defend the land and the people, which are our volunteer sons and daughters. And that's why we're having uh, a breakdown in security. The way I'm getting a lot of messages because behind the scenes, a lot of things are going on because we have an alliance now inside of Fort Bliss and another key witness um, that I have to say um, was up to no good. Was up to no good. And that's why they know so much, is because they were up to no good. You know, one of the things that we have been absolutely made aware of that we were never really aware of is the level of conflicts of interest in this case. The conflicts of interest are not just with Leilani Hart and CID Special Agent Tavita Nusa. Just that one conflict of interest is a wowzer, okay? Because First Lieutenant Dallas Hart is a suspect, is one of the key suspects for the murder of our son. And so this this conflict of interest with a CID special agent and um, that we're trying to get confirmed, this report to the El Paso Police Department that Leilani Hart was boasting that she controls the CID within Fort Bliss. Uh, I mean, she controls it somewhat, like Monica Lewinsky did in the White House. If Monica Lewinsky walked in, I think some of the staff members didn't get in her way. I think she had a little more power than what she should have had. I'm sure. Um, that's just the way things happen. That's just historical. She's just an example. And so if Leilani Hart has that kind of influence in the CID, we need to know that because we have it confirmed that she was having an affair with Tavita Nusa, special agent, and he was married to a different individual, and she's married to a different individual. And on the 22nd of July, she puts in and notarized. We talked to the notary public. So she puts in a notarized complaint to the CID about a 7-year-old child being raped in her house, in her master bedroom, by multiple members of her household. She puts in a complaint about the continuous and long standing presence of child pornography in her home. She puts in a complaint, official complaint that's notarized to the CID and FBI, that First Lieutenant Dallas Hart is in an incestuous relationship. Now, you know, I didn't say this stuff. Leilani Hart said it. And she wanted it to be out there and she wanted it to be investigated because that's why she put in a notarized CID complaint. So we, because she wanted Richard's file, because we have a key witness that knows that um, they they confessed to being very involved in Richard's case. This is important information that needs to be verified, that needs to be, and I've invited her on to clarify. Um, but I think that the CID, special agent in the CID, Tavita Nusa, has lost his badge. Okay? Major General Clem Coward lost his command of 32nd AgCom. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Roddick lost his command position. Um, First Lieutenant Dallas Hart is out. First Sergeant Michael Ruggiero lost his position as First Sergeant. He's out. Um, Judge Robert Shook, he's leaving. He's leaving even though he left evidence behind that he had planned to stay there for quite a while. Um, stay at Fort Bliss, stay in El Paso. But he seems to be leaving. They all seem to be leaving. And we received information today that they want everyone to clear out of Fort Bliss. They're trying to deploy as many soldiers as they can to get them out of there. Of course, housing is always a problem wherever they send them. Um, it is, there is so much evidence of not following protocols, not flagging the unit. We have evidence that they had a town hall meeting where they told them not to talk to anybody, right? That's not following protocol. The first sergeant not willing to clarify questions that we had, that's not following protocol. Where is the platoon leader? That's not following protocol because that platoon leader has access to Richard's room and Richard's belongings and the investigation. Absolutely. And so, but these are all very, I would say, junior suspects, junior collusion. The even Clem Coward being a two-star general. Because you see, General McConville could have cleaned that all up. He could have got down. He could have solved this whole case in 24 hours. But he did not choose to do that because just with the conflicts of interest that we're getting, the conflicts of interest with Leilani Hart, with the chief of security of of Fort Bliss, the chief of security of Fort Bliss, this conflict of interest, the conflict of interest with the CID, the collusion, the reports that we're getting because we have an alliance within the law enforcement from within Fort Bliss, because we have an alliance with the security within Fort Bliss, that we have. Okay, I'll read you off a little bit of what was going on. But before I do that, I want to tell you about Richard's CPS and CID complaints. And I'm just going to overview them a little bit because Richard was reporting concerns of misconduct and mistreatment involving children within his unit. Okay? He did that to the Child Protective Services. Okay? We have the Sound of Freedom, a true story. We know there's child sex trafficking. We know there is this sex cult because remember the colonel that had the doggy mask and he was bragging on how he liked to rear puppies, and there's this big old group. We have I have so many pictures of this group that are in the military that admitted to trying to groom volunteer sons and daughters in the military to join their little sex cult. Right? Is that what you're supposed to do as a colonel? Let's organize ourselves so we can groom our volunteer sons and daughters of this country to join a sex cult. Okay, so we know that they exist. We have all that information. We know we have child sex trafficking. We know we have this pornography issue that they were taking servers. They're these special servers just for pornography and blasting that pornography out there to be downloaded, to be airdropped. And all pornography is child sex trafficking. And we know that Leilani Hart had admitted in her CID complaint that they really had all the child sex pornography. We also know that the barracks, because of talking with many, many, many people, that the barracks were a marketplace for illegal drugs. Okay? For illegal drugs. Whatever you wanted. I don't even know the name of them. I know when I spoke to Belen and she just popped off the names, I was like, how does she know? I would never have known that at 18. I would never have known that. And so you see our young people are being groomed into the drug industry, groomed into the sex industry, groomed into the sex cult industry, groomed into the pornography industry, groomed into even gun sales, gun smuggling, equipment smuggling, ammunition smuggling. They're they're just surrounded by a criminal syndicate. And this is happening on Fort Bliss, okay? This is happening on Fort Bliss because if they just stay drunk all the time, that means there's no oversight. That means the NCOs are not doing their job. If there's a rape problem, that means the NCOs are not doing their job. And of course, the 4-star generals are not doing their job. They create all these programs, but they never solve the problem. We have a suicide problem. That's because the NCOs and the generals are not doing their job. Rob never heard of the suicide issue like it is today, or the rape issue, or whatever. And he retired after 30 years in 2006. My dad never heard of it. So we have 44 4-star generals. Okay, so we're very bloated. They have no excuse. They're very bloated. They have very deep pockets that we have provided for them. We have given them everything. There was only 7 4-star generals with 10 times more service members during World War II. So these 44 4-star generals have no excuses at all. They could get all of this under control if they wanted to. But because they are servicing foreign and domestic enemies and pocketing whatever, because I will tell you at one of the meetings, the meeting for the 15-6, I said, wait a minute, this 15-6 was so bogus. Didn't you even look at their finances? Because their finances would reveal what is going on if it was criminal. Because it's all, you're not going to join a sex cult. You're not going to sell drugs. You're not going to smuggle weapons without having a little bit of profit there, right? So you're not going to sell porn and child porn and have this risk without having to funnel money to certain accounts and certain whatever to to have a nice little cushion or whatever. Because this is why people are silent, because they don't want to lose that little cushion. They don't want to lose that illegal monies. And so with the 15-6, it was not absurd for me to say, did you look at their finances? You should have seen their faces. It looked like they were kids that had stolen cookies out of the cookie jar. And I'm like, did you check their hands for chocolates, or crumbs? I mean, it was so obvious that was like a no. Why would we want to check finances? Oh, duh. And so because we are not leaving any stone unturned, and that we will climb every mountain, and we will follow every stream and go down every valley, because we want to know what happened to our son. We want our son. We want our son. And you just can't take a human being and decide to retaliate against him because he's not playing your Vanity Fair game, and unjustly retaliate against him, and then decide when he, hasn't suicided himself, that you're going to finish up the job. And even the command green, we have it from the chief of security of Fort Bliss, that they greenlit this whole thing, that the command decided to do it and let it happen. Because Richard even went to the CID and reported the criminal activities that he witnessed, that he knew was going on in his unit. he pulled on a string and another string and another string. And they did not like that he wasn't participating with the Vanity Fair, but was also not going to stand by and let these children be trafficked. These children be raped like the one being raped in Leilani Hart's master bedroom. Like taking pictures of movies and creating child porn to be blasted through these servers to our volunteer sons and daughters to groom them into sex cults. Because you see, everything is connected. Everything has, you put that in your mind, it's going to make you sick. You pollute our sons and daughters, they're going to get sick. It's called the terrain theory, not the germ theory, the terrain theory. And they will literally get sick, mentally and physically. And then morally. And it is very clear that our 44 four-star generals want our volunteer sons and daughters to be polluted physically, spiritually, mentally, and morally. And so because we are calling it out, what we have uncovered, what we have exposed, what we know is going on, you're going to see retaliation against us. That just is something that comes with the territory of being a whistleblower. This is our case too, y'all. They illegally searched our home without a warrant. They illegally searched our home without a warrant. Why would they do that? Why would a buddy sheriff or an FBI call a buddy sheriff and say, hey, go to this family's house? We don't, just put on a show. Just put on a show. Send out your fugitive apprehension unit and put on a show. Make sure they're ready to kill. Make sure they're dressed ready to kill. Literally. In full battle gear. And do your thing. Put on, we don't have a warrant because there's no probable cause, because Richard was found dead long ago, but nobody knows. Shh. We can't let that out because it would implicate so many high-ranking officials, and they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their cushy job. They don't want to lose everything that the American people give them. But see, the thing is they have broken the covenant. They have broken their promise, their oath. We give them everything that they need to defend our country, meaning the land and the people, which means the volunteer sons and daughters that come into the services for a few years, or maybe make it a career. You have to uphold that loyalty, that respect, that selfless service, that honor, that integrity, that personal courage. You have to uphold that. That's part of the deal. That's part of the promise. That's part of the covenant. It's a two-way covenant. We don't just give you everything and then you turn around and rob us and groom our children and pollute our children to join sex cults, get on drugs, be part of a drug cartel, you, rape, uh, watch child porn, watch any porn because it's child sex trafficking that is behind it all. That's not what, or go and blow up innocent people in other countries just because you want to have a war. So, the contractors can, I don't know, not be a little bit more creative in their business models. Maybe they should make things to build things instead of make things to destroy things. uh, you know just my opinion. So as we see, um the collusion between very high officials, high ranking, and that Richard was stepping on their, well, I don't even know if he, I guess the impact of the CPS and the CID complaints um really created the collusion and the hiding of the evidence, the tampering of his remains, the obstruction of justice, covering up, you know, all the wrongdoing. These are the involvement of high ranking officials. And we absolutely know that McConville absolutely committed crimes. We know that the chief of security for Fort Bliss committed crimes. We know that CID Marlon Soto committed crimes. We know it. It's not a guess anymore. We know that they scrubbed Richard's file. We have the evidence of scrubbing Richard's file of any mention of a key witness. We know that they scrubbed Richard's file, sanitized it from the unjust retaliation of the field grade Article 15, the chaptering, and then they went and promoted him twice. And if you've been with this case from the beginning, you absolutely understand what I'm saying. Well, like, what? They wanted to make Richard out to be like an Al Capone, and they have nothing, nada, nothing. They have nothing. Richard did something so remarkable. He is in that same category for me as Tim Ballard. The amount of courage to protect those children, to report those children, to report the crimes right there on Fort Bliss, being surrounded by the enemies, going into the enemy camp, y'all, having the restraints of the government, having the power of the government, the military operations set against him with the tools that we have given them. We've given the military the tools of the Article 15, and yet they used the field grade Article 15 with maximum punishment, and that wasn't good enough for them. They had to add more to it, add more to the maximum punishment to Richard, making sure he did his 45 days of extra duty in full battle gear, wearing a mask. And this is in May and June in El Paso, Texas. And for what? For nothing. That's why they had to scrub it. And I'm looking at my notes now because I want to tell you a little bit about what was happening between the chief of security on El Paso, right? Since now we have an alliance. We have an alliance within El Paso, within Fort Bliss, I should say, within Fort Bliss. So the collusion, and I could say the alleged collusion, but we have proof ourselves, you see. We have 1,091 days minus 36, but even those 36 days now of all of our research, what was happening before we knew. We have 1,091 days of evidence. Of evidence. And so, you can play it safe and say, oh, these are allegations. But I want to say that there was absolutely, we have proof there was tampering of witnesses. That the chief of security on Fort Bliss with CID and with others colluded together to tamper with witnesses. We have proof of that. We have dates, we have papers, we have proof. We have the people. We know that the chief of security of Fort Bliss with the CID on Fort Bliss and others suppressed evidence. Not only suppressed evidence, but also scrubbed the evidence. We know that they colluded together because we have the evidence that they suppressed evidence. Okay. We know that they colluded together to leak information to potential suspects. We know that. We have the evidence. I brought that evidence to a meeting. I have even more evidence now of the leaked information. We also have the evidence that the chief of security of Fort Bliss colluded with the CID of Fort Bliss and others in the command, like Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, like Lieutenant General Donna Martin, like General McConville, that they colluded with the CID there, that they colluded with the chief of security of Fort Bliss to mislead this investigation. We have evidence that they colluded to delay response. I mean, are you not? It's like, wow. And they did this because they wanted to protect certain individuals. Okay? Certain individuals, they wanted to get away. They wanted them to get away. They deliberately, and I'm talking about the chief of security of Fort Bliss and the CID on Fort Bliss colluded to deliberately mismanage the evidence, to overlook crucial leads, to protect certain individuals, so that they wouldn't be held accountable for their actions. I have a long timeline here that I'm scrolling through if you want to know. And I have this long list of suspects and everything that we're collecting on every one of them. And I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it. Because you see, as we go through this, the retaliation is against us. We've been retaliated against for a pretty long time. Remember those months? Every day, nasty text messages. Every day, vile, vulgar. And I told my husband, I said, I have to stop this. I can't get rid of our hotline, 941-677-0060. But I can trace these burner phones. I can do it. And this is the thing. The lies from Soto. He said he couldn't trace burner phones. You know, he is a CID special agent, right? In charge of the CID, the Criminal Investigative Division there on Fort Bliss. Okay? Fort Bliss. It's not a rinky dink. This is Fort Bliss. And he's telling me that he doesn't know how to trace a burner phone? That's such a lie. Because I did it. We did it. We did it. Team Find Richard Halliday. We did it. And I sent those in, and there must have been something to it, because I haven't gotten the vile, vulgar messages, right? Because they know I'll know where they come from. And I turned it in, and I guess, I didn't turn it in to the people that were sending the messages. I turned it into the authorities. So does that mean that the authorities, because this is what I'm claiming, the very authorities that are supposed to be helping were the very authorities using asymmetric warfare tactics and military operations against us? Okay? Were the very people behind, not directly texting them, but behind those sending the vile, vulgar messages. Maybe they were directly texting, I know these phones were special phones, and I know it stopped, and I know that it led to those that don't want us to uncover what happened to Richard. See, when you are the chief of security at Fort Bliss, you have the authority to influence the pace and the scope of any investigation. So if you want to delay an investigation, you can do it. And so we know that the chief of security at Fort Bliss colluded with Marlon Soto to delay this investigation of our son. The delayed response is a big one, because it really shows that they were trying to cover something up if they weren't clicking heels together. and that the leadership was behind it because the leadership would not tolerate a delayed investigation if they really wanted to find out. I mean, the military is all about swift and sure, right? Swift and sure. Um, we know that they've lied to us about many different things, especially about the belongings of Richard. So, and to lie to us about the belongings of Richard was an intentional misdirection of this investigation. So, the also we know that they colluded to manage the narrative that was out there. And they're still trying to do that. But you see, Rob and I have worked very hard to have a good marriage and a beautiful family and a beautiful home and an honorable life. We've worked very hard. And we have left a trail of that work, our beautiful work, our hard work. You can see our family, and it's not perfect, no family's perfect, but you can see the work that we've done and the love that we have put in to each other. The love that we've put in, Rob and I, the sacrifices we have made for each other, the sacrifices that we have made for our children, the love that we have put into our children, and for our home. And to have a beautiful home, you have to have a moral foundation. And this is something that Rob and I have been talking about this case, is, oh my gosh, they make life so hard. You think we've worked hard building our life, but when you are, dealing in criminal activities and you're dealing with and participating in sex cults and harm against children, sexual assault against children, and you leave that evidence in your home, and you are pushing it into the barracks and onto Fort Bliss, and you are profiting from it on Fort Bliss, and you're participating in it, because let me tell you, the chief of security of Fort Bliss and the CID have participated in this Vanity Fair. They've participated in it. And because they are, and they still are, because they have been doing it for years, the chaos of that kind of life, no wonder they drink heavily. No wonder they go to drugs. No wonder they're angry. They're so angry. They're angry that I want my son. I have every right to get my son. I have every right to get answers to where my son is. I have every right. And they get angry. How dare you? How How dare you want to know where your son is? How dare you want to cover up our crimes, our sin? Don't you have sin? I never said I didn't have sin. But I'm not afraid of it. I confess it. I'm not afraid of it. I don't have to live that kind of life of chaos. Cover up, and just angry. They're so angry because I want to know, where's my son? What happened to my son? No, you're lying to me. You're crazy. You're insane. You're lying to me. Oh, well, maybe that. Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's right. But then that turns out to be a lie. Every time I gave them a benefit of the doubt, it turned out to be a lie. Sorry. FBI man turned out to be somebody. The father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado of the G3. My son's command operations. And he said the FBI, and let me tell you, I've had a body language reader look at that video over and over again. That man was telling the truth. Nadal Baim was telling the truth. The FBI are hiding the remains of my son that they found in Juarez, Mexico. Now you go ahead and get your friends together, have a party, the ones that are naysayers, and look at that video with some body language experts. Look at the video with the cashier, who's absolutely telling the truth. And Nadal Baim was absolutely telling the truth that the FBI was looking for our son's remains in 5 places, and they found remains in Juarez, Mexico. They found him. It's a secret. That is a truth too. When he goes, shh, that spoke volumes. And I remember Corinne saying, oh no, he's pushing up his mask. I'm like, he's not pushing up his mask. And I've had other people to evaluate this. He's telling the truth and he's speaking volumes. He's speaking that they're covering up my son's remains. They're covering up the fact that they found my son's remains. That's what he was saying. And you better believe it, that the CID colluded with the security chief of Fort Bliss to help with many others to intimidate witnesses, to manipulate the whole Fort Bliss. Can you imagine? Oh, and COVID, that was admitted to us also. COVID masked the cover-up, masked the discrepancies, masked the irregularities. They used it. They used not COVID itself, but the COVID mandates, the COVID measures. They used it. And they, if you want to know, General McConville, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, Lieutenant General Donna Martin, the Chief of Security of Fort Bliss, the head of the CID on Fort Bliss, with others, colluded with the FBI. And I know it sounds like that's impossible, but look, we have it right now in Washington D.C. They're doing it. They're doing it right in front of us. And we have gotten a lot of pushback because we're saying the truth. If I was really just a crazy mother on here, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. But you see, I'm not, because we have evidence. We have witnesses. We have the chief of security of El Paso. We have another key witness, an officer of the court. We have other witnesses. We have Anthony Swafford, really a disgruntled witness, right? But he's a witness. We have Nadal Baim, who's also a witness. We have Belen Rocha, who's also a witness. And we have those that we have to protect. And we have those that have made plea deals. They absolutely tampered with evidence. We have proof that they tampered with evidence, that they have hindered efforts to uncover the truth. That they've suppressed evidence, suppressed witnesses, manipulated witness testimonies. We know that came from the chief of security of Fort Bliss colluding with the CID officer at Fort Bliss. And let's not forget JAG. So now we have JAG involved. So the chief of security of Fort Bliss goes into the JAG office to be a whistleblower, to say, look, there are irregularities here. There are discrepancies here. A key witness in Richard Halliday's case has been unjustly targeted and retaliated against, and it's unjust because there's no packet. So there's no investigation, there's no due process for this kind of severe retaliation against a key witness to suppress the witness. He goes in there and he talks to the JAG, and the JAG's like, well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to acknowledge your report because Major General Eisenhower might not like that. And I can't report to him. I'm afraid of him. I'm citing fear and hesitation to report to the commanding general of Fort Bliss That's why I can't take your whistleblowing report that a key witness in Richard Halliday's case has been defectively retaliated against because there wasn't even an investigation, no notification, no documentation to severely retaliate against him. in the first place. Yeah. So this is where we're at. We have all of this evidence. And so I'm going to tell you that there's so much money involved here. Okay. They didn't want to look at bank records because they knew what it would show. Because people are not going to do this kind of stuff um, just because they're in a sex cult, just because they want to look at child pornography. Because it's so prevalent, y'all. It's so prevalent. If they end one, they can go to another. And that's the sad truth. But when you have your business plan set and it's working and it's pumping out, you have this cow that's giving you milk, you're going to protect that cow. And if you've ever read the history of the United States, for the first 50 years, the history of the United States, it was peaceful. There was no problem. But it's the felling of the trees, the bringing in cattle, the having those fields and having ready food, and the two cultures clashing because, uh, you know, those cows look tasty, and the farmers wanting to protect their cattle. That's when the skirmishes, the I got your scalp, all of those things started because they both wanted the cow. They both wanted the cattle. And so Richard wanted to, the cow was illegal in this case. And that's why he threatened they illegally were that equipment is not for sale for them. Those children are not for sale for them. That child pornography is not for sale. The illegal drugs that ruin so many lives, kill so many, just not for, our volunteer sons and daughters are not for sale. And they made a business plan out of it. They made a business plan that they could enrich themselves on. And I'm talking about high-ranking officials. And what did the Sound of Freedom say? Our children, God's children, are not for sale. And they want to enslave our volunteer sons and daughters to a life of grooming and drugs. They want to make them the customers for the drugs and alcohol and the psyops. And Richard did something remarkable. He stood up against it. He stood against it. And he paid the ultimate price. And that's why when you see false narratives, the tampering of the narrative, the tampering of witnesses, we're at 1,091 days, y'all. If they're going to bring in a witness at this time, uh, and not through official channels, um, that's, come on, come on. If they're going to retaliate at this point, then you know they're not up to no good. If they're paying attention to a crazy woman, I think I'm just a mom that wants to know where my son is. And if they're paying attention to me, well, that's because we're over the target. That's because we're getting, well, we have the alliance and we're getting more witnesses and we're putting it together because the JAG office, we it seems like we've implicated Judge Robert Lee Shook because they had to do things somewhat legal, somewhat, the warrant. Well, they didn't have a warrant to search our home, but did they have a warrant to search another person's home? Did they have warrants for arrests? What about search of a vehicle? What about search of a crime scene? Search of an area where remains were found? They've lied to us about so much. Um, and every one of those warrants, and we have lots of them, they had to have a probable cause. And we've asked Judge Robert Lee Shook for the probable cause that came out of the JAG to issue these warrants and what warrants were issued. And we asked for more too. It's when this breaks, you know, and I don't know when, and I know that we they're going to retaliate. That's why I have to be on here. I have to be transparent. I have to be in the public eye because the DA is not going to protect us. They're not going to do their job. The FBI is not going to do their job. The AG is not going to do their job. Veronica Escobar is not going to do her job. And it goes on and on. I mean, it makes you wonder why we're paying taxes. They've broken the covenant. They're supposed to do certain things for the tax money that we give them. And they've broken that. And they've broken the trust and the loyalty and the integrity and the duty and the respect and the selfless service and, of course, the personal courage. Because the chief of security of Fort Bliss should be courageous because they have a police history, because that's what their job is the security of Fort Bliss. They should have personal courage. They should have integrity. And they should fight for Richard and the likes of Richard and our volunteer sons and daughters. They should fight for the integrity of Fort Bliss, the honor of Fort Bliss, the loyalty of Fort Bliss, the trust in Fort Bliss. That's what they should do. That's what he should do. And that takes courage. That takes courage. Where is the courage? So we've got a little bit. We got a little bit coming into the JAG office. But this needs to break way open. And he can do it. And I really appreciate the little effort. But you see, it's so hard because we're at 1,091 days and the chief of security of Fort Bliss colluded and conspired with CID and others against my son, who did an amazing thing. Amazing thing. And I want to take some time to show some pictures. Let's see. Some of these pictures you know already. This is our home in Ireland. This was our living room. This was Hannah wasn't there. She was married at the time. This was our Christmas. This was me in Florida. We moved back. This was at Siesta Key. And we had just moved back, and I was showing, there's Richard there and Hannah, that we were back in Florida. And Allison. Yeah. Here we are in Israel. This is a little bit of a small picture. But we're in Israel. There's Richard right there. And that's my mom and dad, my very good friend. I love you, Gina. I miss you. And then, of course, Rob and I. And we had a great time. It was such a privilege. Allison is taking the picture here. It was Allison and Richard and Rob and I and my parents and Gina with a few others that went on this amazing tour in Israel. So we were very privileged to go. Here is us, well, the youth in Florida. So here we are. This is where Richard and Robert are a little bit younger. Hannah, Allison, just winter in Germany. My parents came over. I love this picture. This is, I don't think I was, no, I didn't go to this. Richard went with my parents to Irish tour with his godfather. That's his godfather. And his godfather's wife, Linda. And so they had a really good time. Yeah. Ireland there. Oh, this was something I made when Allison and Robert and Richard were confirmed. This is in the airport on the way to Israel. This is a great picture of Richard. I always do that. Robert, Richard, Richard, Robert. This is Richard getting his black belt along with Allison. and their sensei there in Ireland. This is Confirmation Day. Here are the confirmants there in the Church of Ireland in Longford, Ireland. This was Halloween, and this is Gargazal. Gargazal. It's a Korean mystery show that they really loved, and so for Halloween they decided to dress up um, as those characters. And so there's Richard with the white mask on. It's a yeah, it's a Korean taekwondo kind of show, mystery show. Okay, here they are with their martial arts group. There's Richard right there. There's Allison right there. I don't see Robert. I think he already had gone. Um, yeah, so there's Richard right there and Allison. Here we are in Germany. Look at, there's Richard right there. um, it's a beautiful little house there. Oh, I already showed that picture. This is Allison's post that I was going through some posts today. And this is Richard and I, meaning Allison, did some carving today for Halloween there. They look really good. There's a t-shirt. Where's Richard? Where's Richard? Here's Richard there in Ireland in front of the Church of Ireland, Tishinny Church. Here's Richard in Dublin with Hannah. There's Hannah. This is in Germany in our little village. And this is pretty early on. Look how cute they were. They were so cute. And Hannah. Yep. There's Hannah and her husband James and Richard to go visit. When you move so far away, you get a little homesick. It's really good to have your little brother come visit, right? Here we are in Germany. This is at Louisen Park in Germany with my nieces, two daughters, and of course, Richard and Robert. Here's Richard there in South Korea. You can't miss it with those buildings, those wavy buildings, amazing architecture there. They're on the beach there together. That's Hannah. This is when we met James's parents for the first time. This was where we went to eat and meet with them, and we had a great time. There's Richard there. And that's Robert, Allison. We were all there to meet the family. This is James's brother. He's now married, has children. Okay, so here we are. This is James's father, R.I.P. This is my dad, R.I.P. Both of them have passed away now. Richard. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful family. The young people again. This is James's brother, of course, Robert and Allison and Richard. Where's Richard? So here's Richard again and Robert. I love that. This smile here. These smiles I know so well. Missing my family. So this is in 2015. This is, of course, in Germany. And I love this picture. It's fun. Look, there's Richard in the middle, Robert. I love that hat. I'm in the background there, and there's Allison and my mom. Here's the boys. I know. I love this picture. Oh, I absolutely love this picture. I'm going to cry. Whew. Yep. Hannah posted that. Okay. There's a good picture again. My beautiful family. Of course, my beautiful family in that beautiful country, South Korea. I love this picture too, especially when you go close up. The Korean village there. I love that picture. I think it's great. There's Richard with Hannah. This is uh, my son-in-law and his parents, and Hannah and Richard. So this is on the island of Jebedu. I hope I'm saying that right, because James's mother-in-law is from this island, and so whenever we're there, we go to the island, Jebedu, Jebedu Island. So here I am, and it's a small island. You can walk around it, but this is Richard and I. That this is on the island. This is when you're sitting on the floor to eat. It's very traditional, and we were eating this noodle stew. Yeah, we saw a lot of, oh my gosh, where they take the octopus and they chop it up. These octopus are real, and they're swarming on the plate, and you're supposed to eat them. I'm like, no, that's all right. I didn't eat those, but we were having a good time. This is in Mulhausen, in our little village in Germany. And the boys loved costumes. We had lots of costumes, and they just wore them out. So they loved them. I don't know how many costumes I bought, but they loved them, and they played with them every day, every day. This is at the wedding. This is at the wedding. This is after the wedding, and we had in Hannah and James's wedding, and friends there, and we had rented out a house, and we had a party, and it was loads of fun. Here is, Richard loved stones, gemstones, right? He loved them. And of course, I had to put this picture up because this is all like mother of pearl and that. He just loved it. And anything like that. He'd always gravitate to that kind of artwork, that kind of shop. Yeah, he loved it. So here, I love this look. Where am I? What are you doing? Be good. Yeah. So here he is pushing the stroller. He's the godfather of little baby James, and so he was very proud of that. He had to push the stroller, and we went sightseeing to this other Korean village where a lot of the movies are made here. These little shows. So there he is, the baby again. There he is, very happy. There we are. Great memories. Makes me cry. This is at the baptism, and Hannah and I wore our humbucks. We decided to wear the humbucks, and they all loved it. There's Richard sitting beside me there, and there's a baby. There's a baby James in Rob's arms, and we're all sitting on the floor. This is very typical Korean church area. And I brought the cake. I decorated it up. So, yeah, there's little baby James. What a great day. This is in our yard in Drum Row. And it's my family. See, there's the costumes again. Costumes again. And this was Richard's 17th birthday. Hannah put up a post. It was only yesterday that you were so cute. Little of breaking things. And I'm so thankful for you and for the opportunity to watch you grow. And I look forward to seeing the man you become, and pray that the Lord that the Lord blesses and guides you on life's path. It's hard to read. Family rocks. This is when James was born, and we went there to help out. They were moving, and so we were helping to arrange things. And um, of course, Richard with little James. And I'm sleeping because I was helping move. Okay, here they are. Okay, and that's the end. This is the human trafficking arrests. Not too many arrests, but here we are. I guess we need to vote for Trump again, right? To get rid of this child sex trafficking problem that causes so much heartache and so many destroyed lives. So, thank you for going down that little memory lane there. And um, yeah, just remember that Richard did something really remarkable. He really did. And he didn't know that when he went to CID that Tavita Nusa was having an affair with Leilani Hart. He didn't know that. He didn't know it was compromised. He didn't know that Leilani Hart had a long history with the chief of security for Fort Bliss. Long history. Oh, knew each other. He didn't know that Clem Coward, Major General Clem Coward, had a long history with Leilani Hart. He didn't know that. He didn't know that there were family related people in the CPS that would protect protect the criminal against the one that wanted to protect the child. He didn't know that. Um, he didn't know that his first sergeant had connections of people that were up to no good, and also in the CID. He didn't know. And so that's why he was swiftly retaliated against constantly and severely. And they tried to manipulate McConville, Bernabe, Jay Paulin, Boleyn. They tried to manipulate the narrative for this suicide thing, and it just didn't work. So um, they just had a green light murder. Just green light the murder. Um, he he wants to take back that cow. We have it illegally. He wants to take it back, give it to the American people, or make it illegal, or undo the crimes. Um, and I don't know. That's alleged. That's alleged. With a lot to back it up. A lot to back it up. Okay, everyone, have a great night. And we're getting to, if you notice, I'm a little bit I don't know. 2 more days and it's going to be 3 years. 2 more days and it'll be 3 years. And our IG, our Congress, they are so living in crime and chaos that all their efforts that are paid for by American taxpayers is just wasted with these long drawn out criminal hearings, and nobody pays any price. Nobody is held accountable. I mean, how much more do we need to start making arrests. And I'm really talking about Richard's case. I really am. And, if you're a criminal in this case, if you have wrongdoing, um, you know, you've got to put on some personal courage here. I know you have a lot to lose, but you even have more to lose by colluding and conspiring and keeping this going. And I hope people see that. I do. I hope people see that. Because the trust is breaking down so quickly now. And when the trust is broken down, you just don't have a country anymore. I mean, you can't trust the money, you can't trust the laws, you can't trust the system, and it just breaks down. So, yeah, pray for Major General Eisenhower. We have sent him another update about all of this. We want to keep him in the loop since it seems like his security, his JAG, everybody is afraid of him, afraid to level with him. We're not afraid to level with him. Major General Eisenhower, you have a real problem here. You have a lot of crime. You have 14-year-olds that are living in barracks being raped. You have first lieutenants that are engaging in incestuous relationships. You have a child porn problem. You have a child trafficking problem. You have illegal drug problem. You have illegal sales of American military equipment and weapons and ammunition. You have a lot of crime on Fort Bliss, and it's hurting our country. It's hurting our volunteer sons and daughters. It's hurting our country, and you need to do the right thing. And breaking this case would go a long way to exposing all uh, exposing the criminal activities on Fort Bliss, and going back, at least trying to, in somewhat form, do your duty and defend this country. The real defense of this country, not these fake narratives of we've got to go to Ukraine to protect this country. Okay? No. Not, oh, we've got to go to Iraq, we've got to go to Afghanistan, we've got to, Syria. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's all business plan protecting. I'm talking about really protecting the land and the people of this country. So, thank you so much, and God bless you all. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. God willing. Okay.